Live from Fargo and serving you on TV, online, and on the go. This is Valley News Live at 10.
This 4th of July weekend marks the one-year anniversary of a Wahpeton man killed while walking along the road in Otter Tail. 21-year-old Tyler Wohlers died when he was struck by a car along Highway 78. Valley News Team's Alexandra Kay hears how family and friends are honoring Tyler while trying to make sure no one else suffers the same fate.
He was a great guy and always supportive of everybody and was literally a friend to anyone that he met.
Tyler Wohlers' family and friends keep those memories. On July 6, 2019, Tyler and his friends were walking home along Highway 78 in Otter Tail.
That whole area gets utilized a lot with just hundreds of people that are out there walking back to cabins or walking back to cars.
Tyler was struck by a car. After suffering the loss of Tyler, his friends have decided to take action to honor him while making sure no one else suffers through a similar tragedy. Wohlers Walkway will do just that. Plans are in place for a walking path along Highway 78 where Tyler was killed.
Make sure this doesn't happen again with anyone else.
That nothing like that ever has to happen again, no matter what it is that you're doing.
The walking path will include the intersection of Highway 78 and 108. It's already been approved by the city and the Department of Transportation, but the group needs $75,000 to make this a reality.
Getting to see it, people use it, and using it ourselves, it's going to be
awesome.
A walkway to keep those using the highway safe and Tyler's memory alive. In Wahpeton, Alexandra Kay, Valley News Live.
Police are still searching for the driver of the car that killed Tyler and asks anyone with information for the case to come forward. Over $25,000 have been donated to the Memorial Path in 3 days. To learn more about Tyler or to donate to the fund, find this story on the VNL News app. 8 Minnesota correction officers have filed discrimination charges against a detention center in St. Paul for keeping them away from the floor where Derek Chauvin is being held. Chauvin was taken into custody on May 29th on charges of third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter in connection with the killing of George Floyd. The 6 men and 2 women described as officers of color say supervisors at the Ramsey County Adult Detention Center kept them away from entering or working on the 5th floor where Chauvin was held. They're asking for the removal of Superintendent Steve Leiden, in-person diversity training for staff, and compensation for the emotional distress and lost earnings.
These officers initially thought the interruption to their schedules was odd, but later learned it was no coincidence. Superintendent Leiden had issued an order prohibiting all employees of color from working on the 5th floor. At least one officer of color was also reassigned away from the 5th floor for her weekend shift on May 31st.
Superintendent Leiden released a statement apologizing to these employees for his error in judgment. He said he made the decision hoping to protect employees who may have been traumatized and may have heightened ongoing trauma by having to deal with Chauvin. He said he reversed his decision about 45 minutes after he realized the error. A deadly night in Minneapolis in the Uptown neighborhood. 1 man is dead and nearly a dozen injured in a shooting at Lake and Hennepin, the heart of the business district there. Mariel Mose shows the damage to businesses as people pick up from the aftermath.
I don't know if they're breathing or not right now.
This is video shared on Facebook by peace activist KG Wilson from right after the shooting. It shows crowds of people and police responding to those laying on the ground, seemingly injured from gunshots.
It just all happened so quick that still kind of process everything from the night.
Eric Thompson lives in the Uptown neighborhood and was walking along Hennepin with friends last night when they ended up in the middle of gunfire.
We, felt and heard bullets actually whizzing by our heads. About 2 or 3 one from each side. So then we knew, like, yeah, hit the deck, take cover.
Minneapolis police responded to Hennepin and Lake just after midnight. Police say one man was shot and killed, and 11 people were shot and taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. MPD had extra staff last night, which they said paid off in their response.
Thankfully, we did have resources here to get people taken care of as quickly as possible. We had community groups out here that helped take care of the scenes, help de-escalate people while officers were dealing with shooting victims.
Businesses were also hit with bullets, many of them left with shattered windows. Hobon Korean Barbecue was open and serving customers at the time of the shooting. The manager there witnessed it and says more than one person was involved.
It was definitely more than 2 people involved. It was definitely like a gunfight, a gun shootout. We found bullet shells from 3 different guns.
Fred Wong is frustrated that businesses continue to be victims of recent violence.
It's a very wild time right now for the city of Minneapolis, and there's a lot of civil unrest, and just people are going, wild and rampant right now, and it's a lot of the businesses are kind of suffering from that as well. We are also a victim to all this violence that's going on, and it's unnecessary. The city needs to do something.
MPD says they called in 5 detectives to investigate this case. Part of that investigation will be figuring out what led up to this shooting. The Minnesota State Patrol says 4 people died in a wrong-way crash on Interstate 35 West Saturday night. Just before 10 p.m., one vehicle was heading south in the northbound lanes near 66th Street in Richfield. Another vehicle was heading north when the 2 vehicles collided. The State Patrol says 21-year-old Alfredo Torres of St. Paul is the driver going the wrong direction. He died along with 3 people in the other vehicle. A 4th person in the other vehicle suffered life-threatening injuries. The state of North Dakota is reporting 1 COVID-19 related death today, a man in his 60s from Stutsman County with underlying health conditions. He becomes the 77th death reported in the state linked to the virus. Overall, another 37 new cases are being reported. 20 of those are from Cass County. There are 301 active cases in the state. Over 155,000 tests have been completed to date. The state of Minnesota is reporting another 8 deaths, bringing the death toll to 1,380. Another 461 new positive cases are being reported. There are 2,877 active cases in the state. Over 504,000 tests have been completed. Traverse County Sheriff's Office is still looking for a missing man after a ground search this morning. Officials say 68-year-old Terry Lee McCoy was last seen at his home in Wheaton, Minnesota at around 2 p.m. on Wednesday, June 17th. McCoy is 6 feet, 250 pounds with gray hair and blue eyes. Officials say he may have sustained recent injury. Also, it is possible McCoy is on foot as no vehicles are missing. Anyone with information is asked to contact law enforcement at 320-422-7800. Nursing home staff have been on the front lines of the fight against COVID-19 for months. This week, there will be a day dedicated to say thank you. Governor Doug Burgum signed a proclamation that June 23rd will be Silver Linings Day in North Dakota. This will be a day to celebrate the roughly 16,000 employees at 218 assisted living facilities across the state for their tireless care during the COVID-19 pandemic.
When our family can't be with us, we turn to the nursing home staff to be our family. We thank them every day of our lives, but to thank them with the support of the governor and his proclamation just makes this a bit more special because we have been through this together.
The name comes from the nursing home staff being the silver lining during these challenging times. If your child needs vaccines, health leaders say now is the perfect time to do so. They say cost should not be a barrier when it comes to getting children up to date on immunizations. Parents can use the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Vaccines for Children program.
you can actually receive vaccines at no cost through the VFC program. Most healthcare providers in North Dakota who see pediatric patients are a part of that program, and our local public health units are a part of that program as well.
Kids who are completely uninsured or underinsured are eligible for the program. The program is also available for Native American children. If you'd like to learn more, ask your healthcare provider. North Dakota state lawmakers are working on a pair of bill drafts that would save schools millions of dollars. But if the bill doesn't pass, the schools have to forfeit the funds. According to state law, a school district that doesn't spend more than 35% of their annual funds must return them to the state. With millions of dollars in federal aid going to North Dakota schools, many of them have said they will lose much needed funds. A bill draft would allow schools to move and then retrieve the federal aid after the fiscal year ends.
This is another example of why that 35% ending fund balance is a bad idea. There are other things that come along, you know, whether it's something like a wind farm that all of a sudden you get a windfall of taxes, and now you've got to spend it because you might be in trouble at 35%.
However, some schools will have to take a risk. The budget the money would go to can't have funds returned without the bill passed. The school's fiscal year ends in July, but the bill can't be passed until session in January. Wildlife officials say record-setting wet conditions that hampered hunters in North Dakota last fall might have set up the stage for prime duck hunting this fall. An annual spring survey by the North Dakota Game and Fish Department estimates 3.98 million breeding ducks in the state. The survey gives hunters a first glimpse at how duck numbers might shape up for the fall hunt. The 4 million bird mark hasn't been reached for 6 years.